When Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India, there were two hands that pulled the strings. One was the Congress party, with its symbol of hand. The second was the foreign hand. The Congress has long ceased to be in power, but the foreign hand remains. It's become a bit of a joke too. Every time something goes wrong, governments tend to blame the foreign hand. And this is not unique to India. But does the foreign hand even exist? Yes, it does. Tonight we'll show you what it looks like. This man. His name is George Soros. He has spoken about India again, and this is what he said.
India is an interesting case. It's a democracy, but its leader, Narendra Modi, is no Democrat. Inciting violence against Muslims was an important factor in his meteoric rise. I may be naive, but I expect a democratic revival in India.
Soros was speaking at the Munich Security Conference. India's ruling party was quick to respond.
The man who broke the Bank of England, a man who is known and designated so by a nation as an economic war criminal, has now pronounced his desire to break the Indian democracy.
The debate is all over the news now, but what Soros has said is nothing new. He's been saying it for a while. Listen to this speech from 2020.
Nationalism, far from being reversed, made further headway. The biggest and most frightening setback occurred in India, where the democratically elected Narendra Modi created a Hindu nationalist state, imposing punitive measures on Kashmir, a semi-autonomous Muslim region, and threatening to deprive millions of Muslims of their citizenship.
It's easy to confuse him with an opposition spokesperson, but that would be undermining his clout and influence. George Soros is a man with a messiah complex, 92 years old, extremely controversial, and unabashed about his intentions to bring down governments. A couple of years back, he pledged $1 billion to oust the Modi government in India. Money to fight nationalists, he said. Soros belongs to Hungary, but his native country does not want him. They passed a law in 2018, a dedicated law against George Soros. It's called the Stop Soros Law. It is to stop Soros from funding organizations in Hungary. The man is a Jew, but no friend of Israel. Among his stated missions is the furtherance of democracy. Well, Israel is a democracy, the only one in West Asia, but here George Soros funds NGOs that deny Israel's right to exist. In Palestine, he funds groups like the Al-Haq and Palestinian Center for Human Rights, both associated with a terrorist group called the Popular Front. But how does he fund these groups? By breaking down economies. Soros is said to be behind the Asian financial crisis of 1997. Again, unabashed and unapologetic about the crisis he helped create. Listen to this.
In the last 2 years, you've been blamed for financial collapse of Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, and Russia.
Yeah, all of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Are you that powerful?
No, I think there's a great misunderstanding. I think that I've been blamed for everything. I am basically there to make money. I cannot and do not look at the social consequences of what I do.
Which George Soros am I talking to now? The amoral George Soros or the moral George Soros?
It's one person. It's one person who at one time engages in amoral activities and at the rest of the time tries to be moral.
Rewind further, 1992, an event that has come to be known as Black Wednesday. Soros bet against the British pound. He said it will sink. Other investors followed. The pound came under pressure, so much so that Britain had to withdraw the pound from the ERM, the European Exchange Rate Mechanism. Soros got $1.5 billion in a month, and the title of the man who broke the Bank of England. Today, he's among the 10 richest hedge fund managers in the world. Bloomberg reports that his wealth is over $8.5 billion, but he's donated way more than this sum. Soros runs a foundation called the Open Society. It operates in 70-odd countries, including India. It is headquartered in New York. It's been used to funnel some $32 billion to various countries. Soros is also a political player. He funds parties and individuals. In 2012, he donated $1 billion to a political action committee led by Barack Obama. In 2016, he was the biggest donor to Hillary Clinton's campaign. He spent £400,000 on anti-Brexit groups. A few years before that, he backed Germany leaving the EU. That did not happen, but the pattern is quite clear. He has consistently used his money to influence policy and people. He's been accused of undermining the sovereignty of countries, funding anti-national groups and fueling anti-national sentiment. His mission is to liberate the world from ideas that he doesn't agree with. And his current target is India. The Open Society Foundation started working in India in 1999, but they launched an India-specific program in 2014. What happened in 2014? Narendra Modi came to power. George Soros started pumping money into NGOs in the name of promoting democratic practice and the rule of law. In 2016, the government restricted his activities. He began speaking out on international platforms, and of late, he's been clearly calling for regime change. India goes to polls next year. While the opposition is still finding its bearings, the foreign hand has begun its work in earnest, it seems. First, a documentary, now a speech. I'm sure magazine covers and headlines like these will follow soon. But the thing about democracy is this: despite all the politics and propaganda, the people still have the last word.